We're sitting down with two groups of women who live vastly different lives, but are each guided by different sets of values, morals, beliefs, and personal experiences that shape their choices, from female sex workers to female pastors. The first question we have is, I believe my work has a positive impact on society.
I I love the work that I get to do. I never thought I was going to be a pastor, so I use this phrase that God can use anybody because if He could pick me, He can use anyone. I'm specifically working women's ministry. And so I get the opportunity to empower women on a daily basis and to see women come in and they may be low in confidence and through Bible studies and through worship and just the community and sisterhood of other women accepting them with similar stories and just to see those transformations. For me, it lets me know that I'm making a positive impact through my gifts, but also the calling of God on my life. So, yes.
The same way I believe a pastor's role is to guide and support and heal, I feel like I am so proud of the work I do, not only because it's a creative endeavor for me that gives me life, it's also a space where I feel like I'm able to, again, help reclaim people's desires, which might, for a lot of people, be repressed, be feelings that are usually associated with guilt and insecurity and a lot of pain and anguish. Well, some may say it's ridiculous, to kind of feel that in that type of entertainment. I feel like if we as pastors and adult content creators can agree, there is so much power in healing the mind, body, and spirit, and that's what I truly believe I do.
Thank you. I have been judged unfairly because of my profession. Okay, thank you.
Honestly, everyone in my life has been super accepting. I actually use the money that I make from my hands. I used it to start a nonprofit dog rescue. And even my volunteers, when they find out what I do, they're surprised. They're like, you of all people? But but everyone's been really cool about it. I have not had one person in my life, I guess, that mattered. There's always going to be people on the internet that say nasty things, but no one in my immediate life was at all judgmental.
So I voted yes. I felt judged and occasionally do. And what's funny is it's not from people outside of the Christian community. It's from people within the Christian community. Because, you have these preconceptions and you have regurgitated knowledge or teachings, rather, that aren't necessarily accurate to what the scriptures say. And this is why you have that whole thing of the Bible contradicts itself. Well, you're not reading it in context. So for me, when I encounter, someone older or just people on the internet, you're a woman, you shouldn't be speaking, you're supposed to submit to your husband, all this stuff. And I'm like, but God said He uses all, that He will pour out His Spirit on all flesh. So it's just interesting how, because Jesus did it, he went to the Pharisees, the so-called teachers, and called them out. So it's just interesting how that happens, but God is like, I've called you, not them. And I'm seeing how He works.
If people are a little unfamiliar with my story, I got into the industry in kind of an off-kilter way. I got on a podcast and I talked about really crazy stories. One of them was getting banged. And at the time I wasn't a mainstream corn performer. I was just an OnlyFans girl. And I remember kind of as I was shooting up the ranks of popularity, I had so much internal beef from my own community that was you're not a real corn star, you're just a content creator, you're not actually part of this industry just yet. You haven't paid your dues, you didn't do all the work into it. And I remember just being like, what's that got to do? I mean, we're all showing whole, honestly. But of course, but I feel like sometimes when I approach people, I feel like I have to prove something. I have to say I also did this, I also was on Forbes, I also accomplished this. I feel like I have a pressure to come bigger as I am, so that way people have to respect people like me sometimes.
I would be okay with my child doing sex work.
I would be okay with my child being whatever it is they want to be, as long as they are practicing it safely and consensually. Personally, for me, sex work changed my life. It saved my life, to be real. I was unhoused. I did not have the situation I was in. It helped get me out of the hole that I needed to get out of. It also has given me so much joy in creation. I don't think there is a sin in sex work and creation, especially there are way worse things I'd worry about my child becoming than becoming a sex worker. I don't understand any negative connotation of sex work at all in general, honestly. Like those negative connotations come from external things. Do I want my child to get bullied and shamed and stigmatized? No. But what I can do is I can work for a world that is less shameful, that is less stigmatized, and has better opinions about people like me. And that's by doing things like getting on here and getting on my soapbox and being vulnerable. I think the bravest thing a person can be is to be. So if my child is gay or trans or a sex worker or whatever it is or whatever the hell they want to be, it's really none of my business except to continually push forward and make them choose joy as long as it's done safely.
Thank you.
You want them happy.
I'm going to change my answer.
Okay.
Actually. I had it as no, but after what you said, I'm going to flip it to yes.
Oh, that's
the reason
influence.
why I had it as no is not because I think anything's inherently wrong with like an adult child of yours pursuing the adult industry, but I had no because I am child free. But that kind of brought up a good point when you said I'd be okay with my, kid being trans or gay or whatever. If you ask the question, would you be okay with your child being trans? I wouldn't have thought, oh, I'm child free, I'm not going to have kids. I'd just be like, yeah, that'd be fine. But for some reason, when thinking about it from like a adult creator perspective, I was just like, oh, well, I'm not having kids, so I don't even have to think about that. So,
Yes.
Well, my story is a little different because I was exposed to porn at a very early age. And for me, it sent me into a spiral. I struggled with my insecurities and all of the things I struggled with as a little girl because I didn't have someone to give me proper context, and I was exposed to these things and I did not understand what I was seeing. And so it made me very curious to things that I wish I would have had proper language and guidance for. Being exposed to something like that and not knowing my value really hurt me as a child because I didn't value my body because no one taught me that. I just saw, all of this
value our body.
online for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know the value of my body. I thought, oh, this meant love. So let me go do this. And that's what I did. And it just created some really unhealthy patterns and cycles in my life that I've had to just really break free from, thankfully for my faith. So because of my experience as a child and what I've had to struggle with because of some of the things I was exposed to prematurely, then I wouldn't want my child to experience things like that or be associated with it because of the damage it did for me.
I feel like corn is often the scapegoat, but really what it is the conversations, like what you were saying, like it was like you were exposed to content that you didn't understand. At the end of the day, there wasn't someone to explain it to you, because I feel like across the board we've all seen porn as kids. Like it just kind of happens when you're a kid and there's the internet, and it's really up to our parents and the people around us to guide how we feel about sexuality and how we educate ourselves about it. Am I having sex with someone that respects me? At the end of the day, that's the final question you ask yourself before you get into any dynamic, whether it's for money or for fun or for love. That's just what it is. And I feel like oftentimes we use porn as the enemy when really it's just kind of like, how do we feel about sex? How do we feel about the way it's consumed?
There is a spiritual component to sex. No? Oh, yes.
Well, I think, too, when God created sex, he created a man and a woman within the context of marriage so that you have that love and that loyalty and that faithfulness. So you're being fed and nourished spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And I think nowadays it's kind of turned into recreation and let's just do this for fun. But in the end, I think the Bible talks about that we're destroying our own soul. So spiritually, it's bringing you down. Now, as a former teacher, because it was so hard getting money as a pastor in the ministry, as a woman, I used to work at a school that was right there on Figueroa in Los Angeles, and I saw, the along there, and it broke my heart. I was at an elementary school, and it just broke my heart that these girls were kind of destroying their lives. They had very bad home lives, and instead of building them up and healing, and I know I have a lot of wounds as a child, and God came and He healed my heart of those wounds because I served Him and I honored Him. So I wanted Him to take control of my life, and I wanted Him to do it His way. So I surrendered to Him.
Most people that I know that were religious, you know, they've left the church in some way, and a lot of it is just from feeling ostracized from like the relentless shaming, right? And it's like the judgment, the shame of like, it's like what I was going back earlier, like, are we really like preserving spirituality, or are we preserving power? You know, especially like the Bible is written by men. It's been, you know, reinterpreted multiple times. It's been retranslated into several different ways. It's, you know, there's so many things about it that are arbitrary. Some of it is metaphor, you know, some people take what literally, and a lot of it serves men, you know. And so when I like regard like things like spirituality and then we connect it to like how promiscuous I am, it almost feels completely irrelevant, because I, you know, when I have sex with someone, I mean it, whether it's casual or whether it's like in love, or whether it's for work. There's that contextual responsibility that I have agency, because again, I'm not religious, so there's no God in the picture for me. For me, when I have sex, it's just me and the other party, and us just enjoying it, because when I have sex, I view it as play. And then when I think about sex, and I think about like, oh, I'm like losing my soul because I'm doing it for money, or because I've had sex with so many people, who does that serve? Men. I don't care about that.
It's the same on the opposite end, like when I'm not having sex at all, you know, and then people face you and are like, well, you need to be serving your husband, you know. At what point does that become consensual sex versus feeling like I'm selling myself? Or, you know, serving someone else versus, you know, serving our relationship? Like, at what point does that start to feel like non-consensual sex?
The Christian community often fails to approach discussions about sex with love and understanding. Okay, thank you.
Personally, me and my husband talk about all the time. I mean, it's natural. It's ordained by God. I mean, that's how we get people, right? You have to have get people. So we talk about it all the time. My parents could have done a better job at teaching me how to discern people and who's for you and who's not for you. So otherwise I wouldn't have dated half the guys I dated. So as a whole, I think at least in America we could do better, but there are congregations that are talking about sex. You're not gonna see, like I hear this phrase all the time, planes that land safely are not reported. You only hear about the airplane crashes. You're not going to hear about the good work that's actually being done. So that's unfortunate, but the conversations are being had. I just wish that they were shared through the world, and you're seeing that. You're seeing more people come out and sharing these and being able to have these discussions. But for me, I think we still do it and we still talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I remember going to church when I was younger. It was always save yourself till marriage and very minimal comments afterwards.
Especially about
Exactly, and it's one of those things, I think it's a touchy subject, you know, and in a way, it comes from, I think, a good place, but it does fail. How many younger girls with probably religious parents end up pregnant due to misinformation about birth control and things like that? If maybe they came from
very rural religious areas.
If maybe that family if the Christian community did empower their women more to be open to talk about those conversations and not act like your kids aren't hooking up, you know what I mean? Like, come on, we all get those feelings once our hormones kick in. So I feel like definitely let's not make it an awkward topic, something that, you know, we need to talk about. Even my mom, being a Christian woman, when she heard I was active at the age of 13, she put me straight on birth control. So I mean, congrats to her. She you know, she understood. But there is a lot of the parents that I remember growing up with their kids where they couldn't even have that conversation. You know, it was like taboo. And it's definitely something I feel as the Christian community, they should look into that. Maybe we'll save themselves a lot of that child pregnancies and all that going on.
Thank you. Yep.
And when I feel like I have been in the church, like what you said, I feel like there was just such a lack of education. I remember so many of my peers that were in the church, you know, getting pregnant, like like being teenagers, because regardless of whether we like to address it or not, like, you know, our hormones are happening. And if those people had the proper education and guidance, and it doesn't necessarily mean like promoting, like, you know, being sexually active at a young age. It's about understanding, like, you know, like does this add anything to your self-esteem? No, it doesn't. Like, is there a time and place for it? And is there a way for you to do it safely if you are going to do it? Because I feel like there were so many lives that could have had an easily different trajectory had there been more education and also just more empathy from the church. I remember a lot of those girls that would get pregnant would get ostracized and they would like leave the church, and it's kind of like, then what the hell happens to them? You know, it's like a much harder path, and then you know, I feel like a lot of Christians wonder, like, where did all these people go? And it's like, you hurt them.
Would you ladies mind switching sides with one another for 1 week?
1 week is fine. 1 week is cool.
So I would mind.
Yeah.
Just based on what you said.
I would mind.
I wouldn't mind.
I can see her.
I don't think it's for me, but also it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it would be a horrible. I don't know anything about. I wouldn't. It would be useless.
I don't know either, but I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Come on, girl.
I'd be a really off-kilter pastor, but for a week is fine.
It's probably a no for me.
It's a no, but it's a yes if I get to take my mind over there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Again, I would say no. I just wouldn't. It wouldn't work for me.
How my heart is set up, I just love everybody. I just want to take them home. I just.
I want to thank all of you ladies for being here today and sharing your stories and your perspectives in your lives about your journeys.